Alright, one Sparta 123. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a different video, a little similar to kind of what I did on the plate carrier video, but more of a mindset and how you want to kind of generally go about things when you're acquiring different products. And this is something that I didn't create, but I've learned through training, and it kind of always one of those things that you do while I was acquiring things, and it's called a Critical Task Taxonomy. And within that, right, we talk about, a lot of guys say define what your mission is for what it is that you're trying to do. It doesn't have to be that serious if you're not, getting paid to do this sort of thing. It could be just, what is the task that you want to accomplish? From there, we would talk about what capability do you need to execute that task. And then from there, you would move into the procedures, techniques, and the skills that are needed to accomplish the capability and the overall task and or mission. So we're going to start with just a general overview, leaning a little bit on an article that Gun Mag Warehouse actually wrote talking about different AR setups. But this critical task taxonomy can be applied to more than just rifle setup. But for the purpose of today's video, we're just going to give you an idea. This is kind of the framework that I want to establish that you guys can work within. This is not the end-all be-all, but more of the guardrails to kind of help drive some of the critical thought that needs to occur to set yourself up for success. So on the left of the screen, you'll have what you would refer to as a SPR, which is a special purpose rifle. This is going to be separate from what's called a DMR, which is a designated marksman rifle. And it's going to be in 5.56 caliber, set up to reach out and touch things within the limitations of a 5.56 rifle. Beyond that, you're going to go down to what's called a general purpose rifle, or GPR for short, and that is going to be set up to be kind of the do-all rifle, the everything in between. You could do a little bit of CQB, you could do a little bit of reaching out and touching stuff, but just generally your general purpose rifle. Beyond that, you're going to also go into your CQB rifle, or CQBR. That can also stand for different things depending on where you look. But for the purposes of this video, this is your general close-up rifle, what you would use to do quote-unquote CQB or anything close up. And then your last rifle, you would have your PDW, or personal defense weapon. This is the only gun here that you see that is not in 5.56. This is 300 Blackout. And this is just for all of the up close and personal stuff, your discreet use, any bag employment, things of that nature. Before I get asked in the comments, because I think I saw it in another video, the blue tape, the purposes of that is these are registered SBRs. They are registered to me. That has all of my personal information on it, and I prefer not to put all my personal information out on the internet. And so that's what the purpose of the tape is. So from here, we'll go ahead and dive into, basically the overview of each of the missions. So with the SPR being on top, that general mission is I want to touch everything from 100 and out. So that's in a 5.56 realm, maybe 1 to 6, 1 to 700 or so yards in order to maximize the capability of the cartridge. Whereas on the general purpose rifle, again, that would be kind of the everywhere in between. I could do a little bit of CQB, I can do a little bit of reaching out and touching stuff. If I happen to find myself out during the daytime, so on and so forth, that I can encounter those different targets and engage them. So that will be anywhere between 0 and say 600 or 500 yards. So there's a little bit of blending over. From there, the CQB rifle, this will be anything ideally between 0 and 200, maybe 300 pushing it. Could you do 400? Certainly. Is it optimal for that? No. But that's going to be more focused for the close-in stuff, and so the general setup is going to reflect that. And then coming back down to the PDW, this is going to be pretty much 0 to 100, if not 200 pushing it, depending on the load, depending if you're using subsonic, supersonic, so on and so forth. Again, there's quite a bit of spillover in each of the different rifles, and some are more optimally set up to do some jobs more so than others. All right, so before we kind of get into some of the other specifics on the setup, the other points of the critical task taxonomy is, so you have mission, define your mission, your capability to execute the mission, which by the way, you should be validating that that capability makes sense for that mission and or task. the procedures needed that are kind of within that capability. So, you know, if you're going to be doing CQB, you have your procedures within CQB, so on and so forth. Then you have your techniques and your skills. So what you want to do basically is plan from the top and then go down each one of the points from mission, capability, procedures, techniques, skills, and then train your way up that plan so that way it meets the overall task and or mission that you're trying to accomplish, which will also be dictated by the capability. So the first rifle setup that we have here is the SPR. So this is the special purpose rifle. The primary mission and or intent of the task that this was to fill was to basically reach out from 1 to 600, 700, and maybe even 800 yards, again within the confines of 5.56 and what it's capable of doing. So just recently I was actually able to reach out to 875 with this specific rifle here. But within the setup to kind of meet that mission, dictated that I needed the capability to not only see the targets out to that distance, but also be able to rectify what those targets are, as well as in the particular application of this build, was going to be potentially using ranging and range estimations using the reticle and anything that is pertaining to that, such as math and dialing and so on and so forth, all that sniper-esque stuff. So how that was pretty much dictated into the build was I ended up going with the Vortex Razor 1 to 10. The 1 wasn't as necessary in this particular setting, but as you'll kind of see with the other rifles, there's a lot of bleed over into some of the other areas. So yes, this does give me more of the capability to do some of the closer stuff if I needed to. It's not the primary focus and intent of what this rifle was set up to do. Generally speaking, and I'll do another video separately at some point talking about magnified optics and kind of separating them from low power variable optics to kind of some of the higher end stuff. But generally speaking, when you go higher up on the top end of magnification, so you have 1 to 6, 1 to 8, 1 to 10, it's generally giving up some eye box at that 1x setting. So some of your closer up stuff, you're going to compromise that fast sight acquisition that you're going to be able to gain on something like the Vortex Razor 1 to 6 E model, or even the regular 1 to 6 Razor. And with that being said, being that this wasn't the primary intent of this rifle, it wasn't as big of a deal to compromise that. You'll probably notice that I won't talk too much about budget or durability, because budget is a very subjective thing depending on where you're at, depending on how important it is to accomplish that specific task that you're setting out to do. But all of my rifles here are set up with a very serious intent behind them of that I might have to defend my life one day. Granted, I might not have to do it to 600 yards or whatever, you know, maybe with these other rifles, but the primary focus is defense of life and liberty, right? So with that being said, to me, having the durability was very important. And of course, it's also going to be reflected in the price and the overall setup of each one of these. So with this particular build, you'll see that we have a general light. So this is a Surefire 600 Scout, the DF model. This will be getting replaced with the Mod Light OKW soon, because again, primary intent is to reach out and touch stuff with this. Again, Vortex Razor 1 to 10. This is on a ScalarWorks mount, and just some general backup, Magpul backup sights. So with this setup here, this was going to be my reach out and touch stuff. The next setup we're going to talk about is the general purpose rifle. So the general purpose rifle, this, by the way, actually before I move on the 16-inch, or excuse me, the SPR is a 16-inch rifle. So the general purpose rifle, this is a 13.9 pin and welded with a Surefire device, which you'll also see commonality here. All of these are Surefire muzzle devices because they have Surefire suppressors. This is going to be the everything in between. So this is going to be able to do CQB. This is going to be able to reach out and touch things if I need to reach out and touch things. This is going to be the jack of all trades, master of none, and it could do kind of everything in between. With that being said, I wanted something with red dot like capability in terms of fast target acquisition, because CQB was in the general nature of the requirement, and also I wanted something that I can get some positive identification out to further distances. So that's what led me to the vortex razor 1-6. This is the E model, so you save a little bit of weight. And this is in a Geisley super precision mount with a Reptilia core armor on the top. This particular rifle and the rest of the rifles, you'll notice, also have night vision capability. They all have multi-function aiming lasers on them. And so with this particular rifle, because I did want to have night vision use in mind, that dictated that my offset, this backup sighting system would be a red dot of some sort, whether it's on a 12 o'clock offset or a 45 or 35, whatever you may have you. With the particular offset mount that I have here at the 12 o'clock mount, this is the primary intent with that is, again, passive aiming under night vision is easier to do when it's higher up off the rifle. Also, if you're doing CQB and if you're into the whole shoulder changing thing or just really moving around, it's generally easier to get the presentation on a 12 o'clock mount rather than an offset. And again, you'll see again the commonality. This is a Mod Light full-size body with a PLH V2 head, or actually that's a V1 head, excuse me. The V2 is on the other rifle. And this is running a Surefire dual pressure switch. Again, a lot of commonalities you'll see. So 1-6, the 1 is going to give me everything up close. The 6 is going to give me out to maybe 400 or 500. Depending on what you're shooting at, you'll kind of get into some specifics with what you're looking at for your top end magnification of what you want to do. Again, I'll do a separate video kind of talking about some general scope requirements of what I look for, but give you an idea. Remember, mission, and based off of what the mission is, what's the capability to do that mission successfully. This one was everything in between, day or night capable, and with that being said, let's move on to the next one. So this is my CQB setup. So CQB rifle, CQB receiver, whatever you want to call it. This is a very, very different use case than the other two rifles. Yes, you can do CQB. Are they built optimally for it? No. Is this? Yes, certainly a lot more. This is going to be, again, your 0 to maybe 2, maybe 300 yard gun. This is going to be set up for the closer engagements. Again, Surefire muzzle device, running a B.E. Myers Mall. And again, another Mod Light. This is the PLH V2 in this instance, and EOTech EXPS 3-0. Again, with CQB being the primary focus of this, I wanted the fast sight acquisition, so I was looking for a red dot. With not needing to reach out and touch things as much, I can compromise not having the magnification, and just the general setup of the rifle is geared towards doing things closer and faster. So it's very handy, very maneuverable. This is a piston gun because this is primarily running suppressed. And with that being said, I believe that about covers that one. And last but not least is your PDW. So this is the only gun that's not 5.56. This is a 300 blackout Sig Rattler. I do have two different configurations that I can run this rifle in. This is the short configuration, so before I dive into some of that, the primary intent with what I wanted to do with this, like the primary mission, is PDW and or suppress doing hood rat activities at night. So with that being said, with 300 blackout, running suppressed and subsonic is in your best interest when you're trying to do hood rat activities at night and not, blow up your spot pretty much. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you're going to run it in a bag, it may make more sense to have this sort of short configuration rather than the long configuration, which you'll see in some of the B-roll if you haven't already seen it. So with this being a bag configurable gun, right, so this is going to be from 0 to 100, maybe 200 the most yards of engagement distances. And with that being said, again, we're going to do things close, we're going to do things fast, so I wanted a red dot instead of a magnified optic. And you'll notice that between the CQB setup and the PDW setup, they are running different red dots. It's a very intentional reason as to why I did that. So again, being this primary use is going to be in a bag, that means this thing needs to be at a moment's notice ready to go when I pull it out of a bag. So what does that mean? That means that this optic has to stay on at all times. EOTech has an auto shutoff feature. It's not exactly suited for that application. Unless you know in advance that you're going out to do a very specific thing at a very specific time, you turn the optic on beforehand. I digress. Again, some commonalities. This configuration is not set up for night vision use. This is just primarily day and or white light use. Keep it light, keep it less snag prone. You have the folding stock as part of it. Sling setup on this one is running a lighter weight sling, which is less comfortable, but it's also less snag hazard with, I forget what this thing is called, but a little thing to kind of retain the sling. So that way when it's stowed in a bag, it's not going to snag when you pull it out. Another configuration I have of this rifle is your SIG LVAL, which is the low visibility assault weapon. And this is basically going to be kind of like your MP5 SD-esque type of setup, where basically you'll have the longer rail and again suppressor under it to kind of dictate your nighttime hood rat activities when you're trying to be quiet. And putting it in a bag is less of a priority because you have overall length constraints. Aside from that, that's really mostly what I wanted to talk about. Again, this is kind of a general video of telling you about the framework that you want to go through some of these processes and acquisitions. I'm not going to delve into, again, procedure, techniques, or skills too much in this video because that's very specific or contextual to what it is that you're trying to do. So what we're primarily focusing on is the first 2 points, which is mission and capability. And from there, you kind of get everything else that comes in line from that. But if you guys have any questions or concerns, please leave a comment down below. If you guys like the setup, please also leave a comment down below. If you guys think the setup could be any better in any sort of way, let me know, drop a comment, drop a like. Really appreciate it. Sparta123 signing out.